lined up for you today is pivoting towards evidence-based decision-making through big data and analytics. Our speaker for today will be Mr. Gabriel Nyamu. Mr. Nyamu is Chief Transformation Officer at Inquest Research and Consulting. Going into the program, after my brief introduction, we'll have the opening remarks and introduction of the speaker by Dr. Murithi Ndegwa. And then after that, we'll receive an interrupted address, the keynote address from Mr. Gabriel Nyamu, who's already with us. Then after that, we'll go into the question and answer session. Members, feel free to type your questions into the chat box in relation to the topic of discussion for the day. And then after the question and answer session, we'll go straight into the closing remarks by Dr. Murithi Ndegwa. At this point, allow me to welcome Dr. Murithi Ndegwa to give us the opening remarks and introduction of the speaker. Karibu Idi.
Thank you very much, members. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this today's session of the webinar. As Brian has said, we have a very interesting topic on making of decisions based on the big data analytics. But before we invite our speaker, as often, I think it's good for us to get a perspective in terms of what we think or where we are in regard to this. And oftentimes as managers, we have to make decisions every day. And most of it is so much on the go that we hardly have time to refer to anything. Now, we also must admit that therefore, that our experiences and the knowledge we may have gathered over time should actually have made us wiser or wise enough to make our decisions dependable. That's why they say age adds value in decision making. However, making decisions based on intuition and acquired wisdom is not just because one is a good manager. It is also because for a long time we did not have much to refer to. But now, thanks to big data and analytics, we have no excuse since there's a lot of information available. When we speak of big data, in our view, as the word suggests, it is a good thing because we need information all the time. But we also need to be able to pick what we need and what is relevant to us. Because again, also, if you have too much information available, then certainly it becomes a challenge to make decisions in terms of synthesizing that information into valuable or palatable pieces. Marketing, for instance, has been made much easier by analytics, considering the details that social media platforms provide for reach and the market's response. We would also need to know, and maybe the speaker will give a discourse, particularly in this area, if there are tools and techniques available to sieve the data, as typically big data has a lot of information and may be too complicated for use as is by every one of us. Thankfully, we have with us a big data scientist, Mr. Gabriel Nyamu, who is also a transformation and strategy and purpose coach to enlighten us on this subject. Allow me to end with a quote by none other than Edward Wilson, who says, and I quote, "We are drowning in information while starving for wisdom. The world henceforth will be run by synthesizers, people able to put together the right information at the right time, think critically about it, and make important choices." End of make important choices wisely. End of quote. Finally, before we invite the speaker, let me just mention a few highlights of the key activities that are ongoing and some that are coming in the next short while. We have our membership renewal that is ongoing. So for those who may not have renewed their membership to date, the time is now. Please get to renew your membership to enjoy the benefits of not just the webinar materials that we circulate, but also past webinar details and materials that we may have had. To renew your membership, please use the paybill number 896600, or alternatively, send us an email on membership@kim.ac.ke, or reach out to Jeremiah Wanga on 0703-840-345. All these details will be posted on the chat. In regard to our diploma and certification programs under KIMSOM, this is going on in the whole country. The January 2023 intake is ongoing in all our KIM branches countrywide. Again, please post the details on the chat. And if there's any question, please put it on the chat and we'll be able to answer. We also have the Company of the Year Awards that are run by KIM, for this, and also the SME of the Year Award, the Manager of the Year Award, and the CEO of the Year Award. Now, we are right now open for submissions. Again, details are available from a Kim Manager Special Projects, and this is Jacqueline Opande, and you can reach her on 0722-582-609. Alternatively, the details will be posted on the chat box. We also have our training calendar, and we'll endeavor to give some snippets of the training calendar for this year. Details, again, are available from the Training and Conferences Manager, Anna McCovey, on 0773-359-278, or you could send us an email on training@kim.ac.ke. Alternatively, the details will be posted on the chat. Some of the new programs that are coming, or the highlight of the training and conferences programs that are coming, we have emotional intelligence for supervisors and line managers in Mombasa from 6th to 10th of February. We also have analytical skills for new managers in Mombasa from 13th of February to 17th. We have strategic organizational development again in Mombasa from 13th to 17th of February. And for more information, please reach out to us through email training@kim.ac.ke, or alternatively post the question on the website or on the chat, and you'll be able to respond. These details and others are also available from our website, which is www.kim.ac.ke. And also, we shall be posting this information on the chat. Please feel free to interact with us. Having said that, it's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker for the day. And this is none other than Gabriel Nyamo, who is going to give us a discourse on the topic pivoting towards evidence-based decision-making through big data and analytics. Mr. Gabriel Nyamo is the Chief Transformation Officer in Quest Research and Consulting. Gabriel is a transformation and strategy consultant, a purpose coach, a certified human resource consultant, and a big data scientist. He's an all-season corporate executive and a purpose coach with vast experience in purpose-led transformation in leadership and organizations through mindset transformation. Gabriel believes that every human has a unique and redemptive life, purposes for impacting people and the planet. He has 17 years of experience in banking, insurance, development, and consulting. And Gabriel is a certified Palladium XPP BSc strategy consultant. I think you need to explain a little bit what that is, because Palladium I thought is a mineral, but you let us know. He's a certified HR consultant with a CHRC, IHRM, and also has an MSc in data science from the University of East London, which is currently ongoing. He holds a bachelor's degree in maths as a major from Egerton University and other various industrial studies. Ladies and gentlemen, let's warmly welcome Gabriel Nyamo, who, as usual, if all is going on well, give him the thumbs up. If there's a challenge, give us a thumbs down or post the details on the chat, and we'll endeavor to respond. Gabriel, the floor is yours. Please give us the discourse. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tamba Mudepi, and the Kim leadership and all protocols observed. Thank you so much for the powerful introduction. Am I audible? Just to confirm whether I'm audible.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank
you so much. So thank you for having me, and I take it as a pleasure to be able to provide this discourse with the Kim members. You understand that, of course, management space is something that, of course, is critical to a successful organization because it catalyzes transformation and change and the impact that we generate from the various organizations that we work for. So I've been introduced. Yes, my name is Gabriel Nyamo, and I mostly usually like saying I'm a purpose coach, but of course, on the front side, in terms of the technical areas of engagement, I'm more of a strategic and transformation consultant, but with a backup of HR and also big data and analytics. I'm very passionate about evidence-based decision-making, which is something that I have practiced for the last over 15 years in various sectors that I have been able to serve, both in my management practice when I was working, but also later when I moved into consultancy, which I've been full-time for the last 8 years. So I think much has been said about me. So because I know I have limited time, around maybe 45 minutes or so. So I want to dive that kind of deep into the conversation that we have today. I'm going to walk through some few slides that will be anchors to my discussion. If I can achieve anything out of this session is to be able to leave with you a certain paradigm shift on how we view data. so that as a manager, then you'll be able to know how you can utilize data as a strategic resource and as a tool to be able to give you insights, intelligence, to make informed decisions. And I'm going to cite some use cases based on some work we have done in data analytics and some of very practical areas that you can be able to engage moving forward. Thank you, Kim, for also investing this kind of time to be able to upskill our managers. I think if you look at the traditional management practices and the roles and functions of management, you may find that the aspect of data was not fully mainstreamed. So we have a core component of management in terms of planning, coordinating, organizing, all those things. But you may find sometimes really the aspect of data itself, it's something that managers get to learn on job. And therefore, there's a little bit of struggle and gabble in terms of knowing what kind of insight to use, how do you even generate those insights from the word go, other than the bare minimum reporting, which mostly is usually casted by our various organizations. So that's why this conversion is very important, and becoming a data-led professional and a data-led manager is one of the things that you future-proof your impact as a manager in the business today. So allow me to share some few slides. Let me see. And again, let's be engaging so that it's a very interactive conversation. Give me a thumb up if you can see my slide, just to make sure I am still audible. And good, thank you so much. Now, the issue here is pivoting towards evidence-based decision-making. Now, when you use the word pivoting, means you're shifting towards, meaning you're coming from somewhere to somewhere else. So there's a baseline of appreciation of where you're coming from, maybe where we are leading through. I think our director have called it, so I'll give it another name. I call it expert opinion. An expert opinion is where I have been a finance manager for long. I know how things work. I have developed experience. By intuition, by experience, I can tell how things will work. I can predict and forecast the future, what will happen next year. That's an expert opinion. But if it's not validated by evidence and data that you can be able to really interrogate, investigate, inspect, and model, then you find those judgments sometimes they could be biased. It doesn't mean that the experience is wrong, no, but that experience will need to be translated into models that can be predictable. I think that's a challenge for all of us in this conversation. So that's the topic for today. And I hope that you're going to get some takeaway as kind of nuggets or insight that you can be able to go and implement in your workplace after we leave this call. My purpose is purely transforming mindset, so I won't drift away from my life purpose as much as I am big in the data. The issue is to focus on the mindset, because we have discovered actually even in the behavioral change that mindset informs even the behaviors. And your behavior around decision making, the mindset that you require, most of them is what I'm going to kind of try to deal in this conversation. Some transforming mindset that actually can be able to cause you to look at the data and ask the right questions, and through the right questioning, then you can be able to derive the right experience and the right insights from that data. I sit in various leadership capacities in the various organizations that I serve, as a board member of several organizations in the country and also out of the country, and I have some experience that maybe I'll be able to share as we engage in this conversation. So I'm going to talk about a few things here. First of all, appreciating the world we are living in, what you call the fourth industrial revolution. I'm going to talk about some of the trends and some of the disruptive transformations that are happening that we need to be alive to, and how actually data help you in those transformations. And there are shifts that are very critical across all the business in almost all sectors. Then we are going then to introduce the big data analytics. Sometimes people used to call them the 10X. I think we are slowly not using that terminology recently, but when we started talking about big data several years ago, we used to talk about 10X. 10X meant 10 times. So if you want to improve your revenue, it's like 10 times your revenue. And data has that power actually to 10X. That means a multiply effect on the impact on whatever you're doing in your business. Then I would introduce a little bit of business intelligence and value-based reporting, which I know management, we do a lot of reporting. How do you change the shift in terms of how we do reporting? And then finally, we can have a quick Q&A session towards the end. This should be a starter conversation, not an end by itself. And therefore, I believe that we can have build up or more targeted bite-sized run-ins that we can be able to hold as subsequent webinars in actually each of these topics in more in-depth and in more details. For now, let's run it as a sensitization, but of course, we are going to touch on some very practical things that we can quickly relate to. Let's talk about the fourth industrial revolution. As a consultant, I spend more time in boardrooms, with boards, with executives. And every organization currently is trying to battle around how do we transition into leveraging opportunities in the Industry 4.0. In fact, some have gone smart to brand their strategic plans and the strategic branding to, if you are called Kim, you say Kim 4.0. If you're ABC Bank, you say ABC 4.0. And we are very passionate about this. And I can hear the desire, I can see the intent in the boardroom, in the excos. But sometimes when you start dissecting on the things that are required in the fourth distribution, you realize sometimes organizations are not yet ready. So you talk about leveraging data for decision making. We sometimes do some surveys and you go and say, let me come and do all your decision points. You have processes, I can deduce your decision points. Let's map all those decision points and see how many of them are mapped to data. Shock on us, I think the highest we have ever achieved is around 27%. That means majority of decisions, and I think we can take this as an assignment to all of us. Go through your process workflows, and if you have process maps, identify decision points. In a process, if you have a process in finance, procure to pay, whatever, all those, identify your decision points, then ask yourself, each decision point, try to map it to data and then test what percentage of those decisions are informed by data. That's just a very rudimentary way of testing how you're adapting data in decision making. You discover most decisions, even currently, are not based on any evidence anywhere. It's more of the expert opinion. And that's the challenge that we have in the room. How do we pivot into a disposition where we can be more evidence-based? Now, we are in the fourth industrial revolution. We understand, I know where we are coming from. We started with the first industrial revolution when we were using water as a resource, and water was the resource that we're using to power our lifestyle in terms of locomotives and all that. Then we went into a second one, which we call the second industrial revolution, where we discovered electricity and magnetism. So we discovered what we call invisible energy, and that became our power. That was the source and the resource that we're using to power the world at that time. Then out of it, we went a bit more electronic, and we discovered a computer, an electronic way of processing information, and convert that information, into an electronic format that actually we can analyze, we can corroborate. And to corroborate, we discovered internet. So internet was just a platform where then information can be exchanged and we can corroborate together, and where geography and our location became no longer a barrier. Now, there, of course, the information became the key driver. Notice the computer is not the key driver there, because a computer is just an enabler for information. If you're automating a process, the workflows produce data, produce information. So the computer was just an enabler for that industrial revolution. That's why we call it the first information revolution. That was 20th century. Now, we have transitioned into a new, bit interesting space, where now we have built data pipelines, a lot of data sets. As Dr. Mureithi was explaining, we are now exchanging contacts. We have people who we are related with, which we have never met. We are doing the emojis on your WhatsApp. We are liking, we are commenting on Facebook and Instagram, the TikTok, the LinkedIn, and all that. So we build a huge ocean of data around us. And this data is more describing to us some definitive models that can help us make decisions more faster without struggle. Meaning we can rely with what we call intelligence. Now, intelligence is almost synonymous to knowledge. And I know I will use that word severally. Information and intelligence somehow connect to almost the same thing. So in this space of Industry 4.0, we are now saying, now that we know, if I'm a salesperson, I'm saying, now that I know that people who are likely to buy my product are between age of 35 to age of 20, who lives in Nairobi and Kampala, then I'll position my marketing strategy this way. You're talking from a point of intelligence or knowledge. What does it give you? It gives you more discernible judgment to make a decision without a gap. Now, that is the space we are in, a space powered by intelligence, but coupled to facilitate that process is where now we're trying to replace the human judgment by what we call the artificial intelligence, what we call the AI. And AI comes just now to take over that. Can I train a machine? You hear people talk about machine learning, which we do even consultancy on the same. You train a machine, feed it with some logic and algorithm so that it can interpret and make judgment, which a human being could have used their brain and consciousness to make that decision. That's what we call AI. So that's the space that we are living in currently. And it's all powered by other underlying technology like the Internet of Things, the cloud computing. Now we have what we call quantum computing, we have the blockchain and many other technologies that have already come on board, and we are already using them in many platforms. Now, that space now is where organizations are trying to move into, but I think you find it will need a bit of a mindset shift in terms of paradigm shift, and I'm going to give some of these discourse as we progress in this conversation. So that is the Industry 4.0. In fact, I must submit this to you. This is making most organizations to all kind of decompose into one thing. We call them knowledge enterprises. Whether you're in automobile, telecom, banking, there's one word you keep hearing. They are building a market ecosystem. If you go to any boardroom, they are trying to see whether I'm in agricultural business, can I build an ecosystem? Why do you need an ecosystem? You want to create a marketplace where people can connect and transact so that you get used to that data, you build your database, and then that data, you use it now to intelligently give intelligent solutions to your market. Now, what do you become then? You stop now becoming a conventional business, you become a knowledge enterprise. And that is the space that we are in. So we need also to be knowledge managers then, because that's what you'll be managing in this last age. And part of that knowledge comes from the data that we track. Now, this makes us, of course, then being able to interact with different dimensions of change. We have big data analytics, data science, which is part of what we call decision science overall, which then also relates with what we call the artificial intelligence, where machine learning and deep learning and robotics comes in, where now we train a machine to replace the human judgment. And then finally, all this is provided for within an architecture, which we call the cloud computing and these other platforms like quantum computing, the Internet of Things, which now give us a scalability approach in terms of how we interact with the data globally as one global village. So that is actually the reality we are dealing with as of now. So we then need to be able to see, and I think I'll take you one step back slightly. Just allow me quickly, just something that I think I need to highlight in the same context as we continue. So with this, let's appreciate a few things that are happening in the market, which I'm going to showcase quickly as part of my building up the case. There are things that are happening in the country, sorry, in the country, but in the global space, which we need kind of to be privy to. I hope you can see my slides even right now, kindly, where the title is Intelligence-Driven Disruptions. I hope you can see that.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. That's okay. Perfect. So I'll go back a bit, one step back, and talk about things that are happening in the market that shapes the space of data. Organizations are moving away from profit to purpose, meaning we've discovered that purpose is more important than just the profit that we live for. So we need them to challenge our thinking and ask ourselves, how are we positioning our organization so that they are more purpose-driven than just profit-driven? Because we discovered that the extent of future in terms of sustainability and impact is on discovering the purpose for the organizations we live in. We are moving away from planning to experimentation. And you need data to do this, because how do you experiment in small, little, tiny sprints of execution, which you can be able to relate with a bigger picture? For those who are in strategy space, we usually used to do the 10-year strategic plan. Now we are no longer doing the 10 years. We went 5 years. Now we are doing 3 years. And in fact, as we speak, as a strategy consultants, we are actually doing what we call 6 months forecast sprints. Now, what does that mean? We are more focused on short sprints of execution than the 1-year plan that was a waterfall approach that we were doing before. How do you do that kind of agility without data? It is extremely hard because you need to track impact real time for you to be agile. Controlling to empowering. We want to empower our employees so that they can make decisions. We cannot empower them if we are still controlling them. How do you empower them? Relay information they need to make decisions at their level, and then hold them accountable based on the result that you expect them to achieve. Then we are moving from privacy to transparency. I know there's a lot of data protection work, and I know we talk about that in many workshops, but on the other side, there's a bit of push for disclosure, meaning organizations are being told to disclose things that they were never disclosing before. Today, now, we even know in our country, the salaries for most of our high earning CEOs. We used not to get that before. So there's a push again to be able to be forced to kind of report things. And for those who are doing IFRS reporting, like for finance professionals, you can bear with me witness here. There's a lot of push in terms of the things that you're supposed to report on. And all that boils down to the data at the end of the day. We are moving from hierarchy to network or ecosystem that are closely knit, that offers and produce faster execution in terms of strategy implementation. We are moving from product to what you call customer centricity. How do you become customer centric if you don't know your customer? Now, how do you know your customer if you don't understand the data for your customer? Meaning, you need to wake up one day and tell, my customer segment that is giving me value is segments around maybe SMEs, probably in beauty and cosmetics. But data should tell you that. So if you don't understand the customer and you don't have data that you track for the customer, it's very hard to actually become customer-centric because you need to convert the needs and translate the needs. And this is why companies are building their platform and ecosystem so that customers interact with our ecosystems, then they leave us with their data. And with that, we're able to customize solutions to them. We are moving from transactional to behavioral kind of data. I think I'm going to talk about it in another use case that I will give towards the end. Initially, we used to track only transactional data. Now, can you notice that now we have companies that are able to tell you how much loan you qualify without asking you for your payslip, without asking you for your bank statement? Why? They are not relying on only the transactional data because I can manipulate transactional data, but it's very hard to lie about my behavior and my personality because that's me. Now, when you deal with transaction, I'll give an example. If you are in a bank or financial sector and you rely on my payslip or you still rely on my bank statement, that transactional data, I can massage it. I can have a rich uncle who give me $1 million every week. I deposit it, I will withdraw it next week for him. When you analyze my statements, I qualify for a lot of money. Is that money mine? No. You make the wrong judgment, and that will not help you in terms of making your credit decisions. So transactional data has a lot of manipulations and can actually be misleading. But behavioral data itself is quite more closer to the truth because you're dealing with a human-centered experience. So it's me. You're able to track my behavior, my spending patterns, my judgment, my decision-making, and that can make you informed in terms of how you relate with me in a personalized way. We are moving from instinctive to evidence-based. I think we talked about that. Social capital blended with knowledge capital because you are becoming knowledge enterprise. This is why you find now companies are hiring gig economy employees, meaning initially we used to reward social capital, meaning employee of the year award, somebody who has long served, let's say for 10 years, we reward that service. But currently we are discovering, wait a minute, somebody can serve you 2 months or 2 years, but they give you a lot of impact. So if you kind of wait to celebrate them in the 15th year, you're actually losing them. Now we are more on the knowledge capital in terms of how can somebody bring their knowledge, expertise, and innovation. Innovation is part of knowledge. So we are now rewarding knowledge and innovation than just how long you've been working with us. And I know as a HR consultant, there are some things that are happening. If I'm speaking to some HR professionals here, we are changing the way we used to reward even our employees in the past. We're moving from centralized to decentralized, meaning we are sharing our data out there, where now even most systems are now cloud-based than on-premise, where we used to just own our own data. We want to expose it. Banks are opening what we call APIs. So you find something we call open banking. So if it's a bank, it's able to open APIs where other companies can actually integrate and be able to mine data and can get some insights and can collaborate together. Then we are moving from owning to share. That's where we don't longer have to own anything. Like the Uber, like the BNB, all those are models that are actually being driven by the current disruptions in the market. But at the core of all these things I'm mentioning, and there are many others, data sits at the core. You cannot be able to transition into this paradigm shift without intelligence. So I'm trying to build a case why this, as a manager, you require a paradigm shift to be able to start making decisions based on data than just the gut feeling. I think I've talked about the earlier disruptions that are happening in the past. I'll now go into some customer differentials. This will be my last part of building the case for data before I get into the application side. Now, there are 4 things that are happening in the market currently. companies that are not able to prove that what they are studying for empowers the customer, other than just enjoying the service or a solution or a product, they are likely to lose their market share. Because customers are looking for empowerment. Give me options. Build for me an ecosystem. Let me be part of a community. Empower me there. I make my decisions accordingly. And I always give an example of, the reason why you have even products like Fuliza, from Pesa, they are all more geared towards empower somebody to make a decision and they can access the solution on demand. That means I can go to the supermarket, I shop, even when I know I'm likely not to have the full cash, but I'm empowered that I can make a choice to access that product when I need it. And I think it's tied also to what you call on-demand service. Personalization. I want to feel me in the experience of the service. When you refer me as a customer, I don't want to receive a message called Dear Customer. I want to receive a message, Dear Gabriel, so that I feel me and my personal touch in that conversation. Now, if you're providing service and you can't personalize, you put it in bracket format, people tend to feel like they are excluded. That's the issue of inclusion and exclusion. When you don't personalize, you exclude literally. Now, how do you personalize if you don't know about that customer? That's where the data comes in, because you need to know my preference, what I like. Right now, we have enough AI tools that actually can help you even tell my inclination, my bias, and you're able to know that maybe I love a holiday than a laptop gift. So if you're gifting me as a customer, don't give me just a generic gift. You kind of can profile my behavior, my personal styles, and tell a personal style of this nature, like for Gabriel, who prefer this kind of appreciation. Then it is made personal to me. If you don't do this for your customers, you're going to lose them because they feel like you're bucketing them or putting them in a box of others, and therefore you miss out on their differentiated value. Then on-demand care, I think this is where customers want to access you on demand anytime they need a service. I think the example of Fuliza also give you on-demand experience. I think I always give an example of one of the leading telecom, but internet service provider generally, among the ones that start giving internet in Kenya. Maybe I can disclose because it's a common known. I think this is Zuku, what you call the Zuku. And I remember many years back, they'll give you a subscription and then you kind of pay a certain standard fee every month. But then if you are traveling, what used to happen is that I spent like 2 weeks out of the country doing consultancy, but because I paid it at home, my subscription still ran. So I'll still pay a renewal the next month, but I have spent half of my time out of the room. Maybe I'm not married that time. And this actually happened to me. But I remember talking to them and I was telling me, now, what do I do if then I'm leaving and I'm still paying the subscription? Should I still then get a kind of a refund or probably stop? They released a certain proposition, which was very nice. And I like that. That's why I'm sharing this, because it was a very nice. When they were telling me, Gabriel, if you are moving and maybe you will be out of the country for 2 weeks, just set a certain notification to stop the subscription. When you come back, restart it. I liked that. That is on demand. I can access the service on demand, not just to force myself into it, even when I don't need it. That's the example I want to give you. So how do you do this then if you don't know how your customers are, the time they are spending in using your platform or your system or solutions? You need to know about the customer more for you to provide an on-demand service. Then differentiation. How do you differentiate from your peers if at all then you don't use data? So you can only say that you're offering superior customer experience, and that's why we call them CX. CX means customer experience. The CX differentiates. How differentiate yourself is around three areas, or 4 areas, sorry. So you can only say you're differentiated if you're able then to benchmark with the data and tell that you're offering above notch or above what the market average is offering. So the data provides a baseline for these, whether you're dealing with an employee or dealing with a customer. So we call it employee experience or customer experience differentials. Now, I think just to give a context of this, you can notice some of these. I know you don't have to necessarily read all this, no worry, because you can always play this role and read this through. But you can imagine this kind of penetration of the digital space, the penetration of smartphones in the country right now. The issue of mobile industry contribution to GDP is quite humongous. 500,000 jobs created by the digital platforms. All these platforms are producing data every day. SIM connections. That is data also, because the moment you connect with a SIM, there's a GIS connection, there's a location data, all those things are databases. How are we using this data in terms of making decisions? And you can see the population. This data, I think, is 2 years old. I need to get the refreshed version. These are around 2 years ago. But you can see the kind of level of data that are in terms of devices that are being connected within our country and also in the region, that then tell us we are producing humongous amount of data. But to what extent are we using it for decision making? That's the question that we all have. So we are in the age of empowerment. We have no excuse today to tell a customer we don't know you. We can't understand your needs. We have no excuse to that as management, because there is enough information that you have even for the customer. So I expect when I come to you with expectations, you already even know and have predicted what I need. So you're only giving me what? Options. You're only giving me scenarios, not from a point of generic assumptions, but from a point of intelligence. Now, that is a disruptive paradigm for all of us as management teams, because we have all this. We have 500 million tweets that happens every day. I think right now, probably, I don't know what has happened after Elon Musk have bought tweet. I think I need to get the refreshed version. But we used to have 500 million tweets. Do you know you can do something we call sentimental analytics and be able to tell whether your brand is mentioned negatively, whether your employees are happy or not, just by sentimental analytics? And that's just analyzing the tweets that they are making, the pages they are liking, the kind of comments they are loving and putting those emojis and all that. That is big data. And you can use it to inform the threads, the preferences, and the behavior of your customer to make informed decisions. So I think this is a kind of a challenge that we have, and that's why we have this call. We are living an empowered age. Everybody, before you go to a doctor, you even Google. I know most of us, when you go to a doctor, you even Googling the medication and asking the doctor, will this medicine not give me side effects of this nature? And then the doctor is, you are actually kind of almost self-diagnosing yourself. Now, because of what? We're in the age of empowerment. So 3 things. Anyone can be your competitor. So you better play smart. Anyone can be your customer. In fact, your customer is no longer geographically limited. Somebody seated in Singapore and South Korea would be your potential competitor or customer. And everyone is your competitor. So this is the realization we need to have, so that then we make sure we are more strategic on how we position ourselves. Else, we lose our competitive edge, and that will, of course, be detrimental to our business. Now, the other thing is we are going to something we call atomic level of analysis. I want to know a customer as an individual. Don't put me in a box of others. Now, how do you get this segmented knowledge of understanding Mr. John and Mrs. Ann as an individual, so that you personalize the experience to them? I can bet and submit to you, you cannot do this without data. I probably have built enough business case on the case for data, and the case why then we need to listen carefully as I get now into more deeper practical applications of big data in the environment that we are living in. We have all these environment where we get data from websites, search engines, mobile, emails, SMS, customer service portal, all those. And we have enough data pipelines. What we lack is the capacity to translate the data to intelligence, to impact, and then be able to have a transformational story to tell out of it. Now you can see this map is divided into several things. There's the demographic data, there's transactional data, which mostly we focus on, and then there's what you call interaction data and behavioral data. I want to point your focus so much on the behavioral data, and I'm going to give you one case study, which of course is a practical assignment that we have done in our consultancy, which was very mind-boggling, where we used data and we actually moved from transactional data to behavioral data, and the kind of things that we did was quite disruptive, which I think all of us are going to be very excited when I narrate that story. So we need to be more focused on the descriptive, the behavioral part of the data. There are various analyses, I'm going to talk about it in a way, but the behavioral data, I think, is one of my core interests, because that is very close to understanding people better than the transactional data. Transactional data will help you unearth the behavioral data, but when you understand the behavioral data, which is a bit of psychoanalytics a little bit, but it's going to give you a very high competitive edge in terms of how we understand our customers and make the right decisions for them. I'm going to talk about that in a while. So why then do we require decision science? It's a cross-functional kind of application of Notice the first skill set you require is not data, it's design thinking. You need to be a design thinker. So as much as you may be thinking about tools to use, and there are enough tools out there, whether you want to use Excel, Python, Power BI, Tableau, R, statistics, I mean, we use all these tools, but the tools without the thinking and the thought process will not help you. So the first thing is actually to have the ability to question and design think solutions that are fit for purpose. That's why design thinking is one of the contemporary skill sets all over the world currently, regardless of your current professional background. Then, of course, you need to have your domain skills. If you're finance, you understand the entire finance value chain end to end. If you are HR, understand the HR end to end. A bit of math and computer is needed. Technology, because you need tools to process a lot of humongous, millions and millions of data sets, maybe in a very short span of time. You need behavioral because much of the insights are mostly on the behavior side. And as I give the use case I promised, you're going to understand that better in a few. Let's talk about now, that was just create a background to understand the big data in terms of the business case and why it's a thing that we need to focus on. It's not something that is a should have or a nice to have. It's actually a must have in terms of our current contemporary. Price, give me a thumb up or a Y on the chat if you're still following. I like to make sure at least we are all engaging. Type a Y or give me a thumb up. Thank you so much. Just to make sure at least we are still connecting in the process. Now, let's talk about the 10X or what you are calling the big data analytics now in a bit more dissected approach. Now, I cannot overemphasize about the big data in terms of the various components. I will not necessarily talk about the 5 and sometimes even there are 5 and 7 V's, the 4 V's. There are many perceptions out there. But understand that data that is actually big data is mostly both structured and unstructured. If you're working in a call center and you receive calls, your team receives calls, that text data in terms of the voice data itself is can translate into what you call text or natural language. That is actually big data. This recording that has been done in this video here, the recording here is data by itself. The video images and the imaging processing that is happening in the airport, in the highways when you have these cameras installed by the government and they are tracking registration of vehicles and even the individuals, all these which we call image recognition devices, all of them are giving us data. The question is to what extent we are using that data even to our own advantage, even as a country, not just even for management, but even you as an individual. One of the limitations I've come to discover that most of the organization only use their own limited data source, what you call internal. The data in your ERP, your core business operations data, all those only. You don't integrate to be able to understand the bigger data where you're able to get a bit of more source of truth in terms of behavior and patterns. Now, the emojis, when you're chatting on your WhatsApp, you'll find the most recently emojis you have used. Do you know that is already building data for you? So if you're a person who loves hugs, every time you respond with a hug, and you find the hug comes at the top 2 or top 3 of your emojis, do you know what? I can tell about your personality. Because I can attach the frequency of usage of certain emojis to the current preference or persona of the person you are. And that's why we need to understand behavioral data. That can make me then predict your needs, your requirement, and I can position. That's why you find the big data companies, the Google, all these big companies, the Microsoft, they will keep advertising things to us. And you find when you like a page, you start receiving some adverts. And I know they make money, YouTube and all that from that. But people have not understood that you are actually the one who has given them the intelligence. But you didn't know. But they are making billions and billions of money just because of that analytics. They are even willing to give you a free platform, free SMS. Why did Google give you a free Gmail account? We never question some of these things. It's because you save your folders and files on the Google Drive. Of course, the data protection, yes. But you know what? We protect the raw data. We don't protect the insight. They will still get the insight. And the insight, I have not seen any law so far globally that protect the intelligence and the insight for big data. We only protect the raw data privacy. Nobody should share my date of birth, maybe how much I earn, businesses I own, though currently we are being forced again to disclose that. But those are more personal. But you know, you have not stopped any company to track and say, we have analyzed people, and the people of age between 23 and 25 years love chocolate that is white in color. That is intelligence. That is not protected anywhere in any law as we speak currently. So, and that's the gap that maybe we need to make sure at least we are very keen on. We can still protect our data, but the insight appear you can be able to get it, and it's more shared out there. So we have the 5 V's in terms of the volume of data, variety, veracity. I won't dwell much on this. This one helps you to know the kind of platform to use. If you have high volume of data, generally you can't use right-way tools like Excel and all that. They can handle a lot, yes, but you need a bit more faster tools that can be able to do a lot of big data analytics that may be in volumes of millions and millions of rows of data. And you can use that whether it's R, whether it's Python, and many other tools that I know many of us use in the market as data scientists. So these are just to help you just appreciate that when you're deciding your strategy for big data, you need to understand the 5 V's. They help you understand the kind of architecture to even deploy in your respective organization. Then some of the application of the big data and analytics, there's something I call the natural process in terms of natural language processing. This is where we analyze natural language like what I'm speaking here. This voice I'm speaking can be converted from voice to text, and then there are tools actually can do a bit of natural language processing. So that natural language processing, like the way you comment on a WhatsApp page or maybe a Facebook page, those comments can be analyzed and be able to deduce, because there's something we call NLP also, which is natural language programming, where if you choose some certain words in your conversation, it can tell me about your personality. A good example, if I record your conversation for one hour, and you keep using in every 2 seconds, you use the word but, or throw, although, but those choice of words, I can actually use an AI and kind of tell you are a person who is more of a control type in terms of leadership. So you can work very well as an auditor without calling you for an interview. And if I needed somebody who is open-minded, you know what? I don't need to interview you. Just by looking at your conversation only, and even the comments you make on WhatsApp, on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, do you know I don't need to interview you? I just need your Twitter handle, your LinkedIn page, and I can tell the kind of person you are. And you'll be applying for jobs, and I'll never call you for interview. Because there are some things that I can be able to analyze just from the natural language. That's what this NLP help us. It helps us do sentimental analytics. You can track the brand mentions out there. The charts that you see, like the bots, we have the bots from, I know, Safaricom, KCB has one. Almost all the big companies have those bots. They morph in on the natural language processing to drive that. And it's part of data again. Computer vision is about the image, processing images, your photos, your currently you have nice apps coming up where you're able to process, like you can go and take a photo of a plant and you don't know the plant, and it tells you this plant is called this, its botanic name, and the benefits and use for it, even if you don't know it. That's called computer vision. It's again data, because before it gives you that, it has been trained by so many millions of images, such that when it pick an image, it quickly kind of match it with other existing images, and it's able to tell you this kind of plant or this kind of leaves and the structure of the leaf is more likely to be like this. Doctors are using it also in terms of doing diagnosis. I think we are seeing the medical field a lot disrupted by this process, because then doctors can be able to, you can actually be able to do auto-diagnosis, where the machine is able to diagnose you and can be able to tell you, you have a high likelihood to have this kind of predisposition of a medical condition like cancer, without necessarily having to subject you to a lot of intrusive, what you call intrusive diagnosis in our imaging centers. Machine learning, I think we have seen this. I think one of the top of the boxes, what people are calling the chat GPT. I think you may have seen it trending. I usually do a lot of talk around it. And it's not something very new. So you can use it for talent management, querying information, and many other things, of course, that can help in our resource planning. Then finally, digital assets in terms of the intelligent products development. I won't touch again on this, but at least there's a lot of business application when it comes to big data. I know we are faced between these two dilemmas. What is the difference between a metrics and analytics? Now, metrics are just raw quantified measurements. So if you stand in the highway and you record the number of vehicles passing, you're just reporting some metrics. Measure of activities both will give us metrics. The end of metrics give us the initial beginning point of analytics. Good. So there's a difference between the metrics and analytics. So the end of metrics is actually the beginning of analytics. So synthesizing information to be able to draw insight, that's where analytics comes. And it's the lowest level of analysis. It's just synthesizing the information and being able to convert it into insight that you can implement, maybe to inform a decision process. Of course, there are different types of analytics, and I'll run them very fast so that I can, there's a slide where I want to spend more time on. You can classify them in terms of the script. I think this is quite straightforward, where you talk about what happened. We call them hindsight. Diagnosis, we more answer the question of what happened and why it happened, the reason for happening. Predictive, we talk about what will happen, when it will happen, and why. That is more of a foresight. And then prescriptive is where we talk about scenario-based analysis for decision-making, where we not only just say what will happen, but provide scenarios. I know in management is what we call scenario-based management. You provide options where now you choose from the options and give somebody options. That's where now you're able to prescribe solutions to customers. Finally, if you're able to replace the human factor and replace it with a machine, which is where the AI, the self-driven cars start now getting into the space, is what you call cognitive analytics. A self-driven car is driven by a data that is already trained a lot and is able to anticipate when there's a what you call a pothole, where there is children crossing, zebra crossing. That now becomes self-learning, a machine learned by itself. We have already started seeing this quite a lot, even including open surgery. There are some leading hospitals globally who will do an open surgery by a robot, where no human doctor actually does the operation itself. So we want to see this, and that's purely a cognitive analytics. So those are the 5 levels. Of course, you may find that people mostly struggle, especially between getting from diagnosis to predictive is usually a major hitch because of the capacity gap. But I want to talk about now a slide that is very important to me, and this is where I'm going to give you a practical use case. Now, data, like any other thing, has an evolution path. If you understand this path, you actually are almost like 80% into disrupting yourself into the being a data-driven manager. So I want you to pay attention into this slide specifically. When you record raw observations, you get data. So the things that we report in our management, turnaround time, service level agreement measures, tenure, service tenure, revenue, cost, expenditure, all those things, we call them data. They are raw observations. They really don't mean much. In fact, by themselves, they have no much value. As much as you say data is the gold, but it is what you do from the data that is the gold. By itself, it's quite like a crude oil, which is not refined. Now, we have to subject it to a process. We derive what we call information. Now, information is different from data. Information is synthesized data, but it has a dimension. For those who remember how we used to do graphs and we draw X and Y coordinates, and we call it a 2-dimensional. You can draw a 2-dimensional diagram that has a length and a width. Data is a dot. A dot is 1 dimension. You don't know where that dot is going. Is it going inside? Is it going outside? Is it going left? Is it going right? Data is usually like that, does not have a direction. When you create 1 dimension of data so that you have a 2-dimension, you get information. Now, information is the lowest level of now how we start getting a value from data, because in information we can start kind of now understand some facts about the things you are reporting in. Look at some of the examples there. We can understand the lifetime value of a client. That means we have summed all the value of the customer. We know this is the lifetime value. That is information now. That's no longer data. We can know the number of new clients per hypersegmented space. So in the data, in the information, what are we concerned about? We are concerned about adequacy of information and standard of that information so that we can be able now to rely on it. But we don't stop there. We then kind of move 1 step further from information to intelligence. Now, intelligence, I said, is what? Who remember? I want us to see whether we are connecting. I said intelligence is synonymous to something, which I said we are all converting into that in form of a business. What did I say? Intelligence is equivalent to? It's part of measuring whether I'm still communicating. Put on the chat. What did we say intelligence is synonymous to? Knowledge. Simon Job, I wish I had a chocolate. Perfect. Intelligence, in fact, is synonymous to knowledge. It's actually defined as understood principles. That's the intelligence. You'll be saying, now that we know that there will be licensed chronic ailments in the next 2 months. Now, notice there is not information, it's intelligence. If you quote the NIS and the intelligence of the government, they will always tell you that we have intelligence that is likely to have a terror attack somewhere. They're not talking about information. There they will say intelligence. It's a knowledge that is almost decisive and kind of almost is very specific, that we are truly convicted that this is going to happen. That is the intelligence. But we don't stop there. There is something else, insights. Now, insight is where we have now no longer knowledge, but a deep introspection of that knowledge, that we are more predictive in terms of what we can anticipate in the future with almost a surety. I know we can never predict the future 100%, but we actually can be able to explain options that will be available in the outcomes of the future. We call that insight, something that actionable, that actually can be able to apply and give us a bit of a result that is a bit predictable. Finally, do you know what ends the whole process? Transformational story, I usually call it impact. This is now where data now give us impact after implementing the insight. So we don't stop at insights again, we stop at impact. So this is why we called it, if you remember the title of the webinar, Data to Impact Path. Now that's a summary of this slide. Here we'll be talking about a definitive, discernible control that we have about the behavior of our customer, behavior of our market, behavior of our employees. Now, with that context, you'll allow me now, because we have ended at a story level, to give you a story, because I promised that story. Now, we worked with a company that is in microfinance, and I hope you follow me very carefully here. That microfinance, of course, what do? They lend money. Then people repay money. So they called us just to do analytics for their data. So they told us, you have all this data, come and make sense out of it. So one of our scientists went and tried to play around with the data, and they gave us their own repayment schedule, which, our own book and their own repayment. Huge millions of rows there. Analyze the data. Out of something I say we were not prepared per se, we identify a trend. So the trend we identified was people are repaying loans between 12 and 2 p.m. So many repayments were happening during the day of a lunch hour, 12 to 2. So we didn't stop there. Now that brought in curiosity, because one of the things that we need to have as people that are keen on data is to be curious, to question. We questioned, why 12 to 2? We never had an answer, but we tried to do a study. And that was quite a bit of almost 4 or 5 years ago. Now, when we discovered people are repaying between 12 and 2, we went further to start to try to study the behavior. We moved from transactional data, which was the repayment. Now we move to behavior. What behavior motivates people to repay loan between 12 and 2? Then out of it, we discovered a model called the guilt model. For psychologists, I'm sure you may relate with this. A guilt model is where, of course, there's a tendency to feel guilty when you rephrase or repray. When you repray, that consciousness of guilt based on a commitment you want to make. What do I mean? If I want to go and buy lunch, and maybe I want to overindulge for lunch, which I'm going to spend 3,000 to buy lunch, I quickly remember I owe somebody 1K. I have a high chance, because of that consciousness, instead of really going to spend the 3K for lunch, I'll pay that 1K, I'll take lunch for 2K, the remainder. You may not see that, but it's actually a huge disruptor when it comes to credit behavior. But until you get intention to discover that, it's a whole process by itself. Now, when we discover that, we say, okay, we have discovered this as a guilt model. By just going for lunch, it motivates people to pay their debts. At least they will minimize the debt, even if not clear the whole loan. So we discovered, and we kind of discussed with the leadership, and we said, let's do this. What can we do with that information that we have received, that people are repaying between 12 and 2? And we have discovered a guilt model called the guilt model itself. Now, we say, can we create more guilt? Forgive me for use of that word. Can we create more guilt and have more people pay? Because they were struggling with non-performing loans. So how do we create guilt? We said, when do you send your bulk SMS to remind people to repay their loans? We said, we've been sending them on Friday anytime in the evening. Is that the best time? No. Can we change that time where we spend bulk SMS and bulk emails reminding people, instead of sending it randomly, we want to send it during the day, 30 minutes before 12. We queued the bulk SMS to run at 30 minutes before 12, which is 11:30, just before lunch hour. Can I surprise you? We improved the loan book by 40% in 2 months. The non-performing loans improved by 40% in 2 months. A wonder of just an SMS running and a bulk email 30 minutes before lunch hour. Now, it looks something quite, I know most of us are questioning, wow, wait a minute, maybe I'm working in a bank, I need to apply that. Your data need to tell you when to do it because your customers could be different. Now, let's try to fit that use case into this pipeline. What was the data? Loan repayment. Everybody has it. Everybody has loan repayment. Everybody has a loan book, but not everybody is making intelligent decisions from that loan book. What was the information? We understood that people are repaying between 12 and 2 p.m. That's just a report, which is an information. Most of our reports are mainly information driven. What is the intelligence? The intelligence is the model that we discovered called guilt model. That when just people are just about to get for lunch, they can remember they owe something and they have a high potential to repay. That need to be retested, and that's why we test model. It may not be holding true even today, you never know. But you need to keep on testing those principles. That is intelligence now. What was the insight? The insight was, if we send a bulk SMS just a few minutes before lunch, we are going to create more guilt and we are going to have a predictable outcome for more people repaying. That's a very, very predictable approach and insight. What was the story? Who can guess? We are running this together. What is the story? That should be the easiest one. If you are following me. What is the story? If you understand this right, you are done. I can just almost close my presentation from there. What is the story there? I know it may take time to chat. The story is that in 2 months, we improved the loan book by 40%. The CEO told me, I can't forget, he told me, Gabriel, you know what? I had already hired credit managers. There's people called the recovery guys, the credit recovery guys. We had already hired recovery guys and actually paid them salary, a lot of money, but they had not even tilted the loan book improvement, even by 5%. Data by itself, turn it around to 40%. I always give this analogy, and forgive me by using that example. Managers have a tendency to throw two things to a problem. You throw either technology or you throw a human being, a body, by hiring an extra employee or hiring a kind of deploying a technology. We have a tendency to rush through, to quickly think a technology will sort you. To think through that another human being who probably just hire another employee will sort your issue. I want to take a pause and say, before you get into that, ask whether you have exhausted options that you have based on the way you understand your problem. Because some problems you can get more higher achievement in terms of impact by not even hiring an extra employee, by not deploying a new technology, but just getting the intelligence right in your organization. I know my time is quite running very fast. Before I unpack many things I wanted to do, data by itself, I said, it's a crab. It's just a heap of things. When it's sorted, it gives us a bit of a certain order, organized by colors. That's information. When it's arranged in a way that you can arise, they become arranged. And that become a bit more easy to do a bit of row-level analytics. When it's presented in a way that we can tell our story, then it's quite more insightful and has a bit of actionable elements. But then finally, to make sure we can be able to deduce it into a story of transformation. We're able to tell how much impact the data has given you throughout. I will jump that just so that we can go to the last part of my conversation. We need to change a paradigm shift where most of us spend time questioning, is this data correct? I call it investigative audit effort. When you share your data with your CEO, they question, is the data correct? We spend a lot of time in that audit work. We need to move away from there to what do we do about it? Now that this has happened, what do we do about it? There it becomes more easy to influence strategy, to be able to have more initiatives that we can implement just to improve our decision making and the impact. So that we understand our strategy, we know our objectives, we know the measurements we are making, but our conversation should be what happened, why it happened, what should we do about it. That should be our effort. We need to move to the level where we are discussing solutions, not how to capture the right data. Of course, that process between data to impact, it's a whole transformation. When we do assessments, and you can invite me in many of these, maybe we can discuss this separately, we usually do an assessment to know where you are. And I can almost tell you, even if I tell you to chat here on the chat, majority of organizations are still in the data and information age. We are not yet at the intelligence and the insight level, based of course of that capacity. So we need to actually make sure at least we are driving ourselves towards that. The other next important strategy, my last slide, before I talk about maybe other few things and then I close, is our various business reporting segments. So the traditional way of reporting, we call it operational reporting, which is more reactive and it's more based on compliance to meet bare minimum compliance standards, either internally or externally. So that's the minimum level of reporting. We are reporting because the regulator tells us to report by every month, CBK, IIA, Insurance Regulatory Authority, all our regulators, SASRA, if you're in SACCOS, they kind of demand us to report. And also internally, we have our benchmark where we say we have to report this. That level of reporting mostly is called operational reporting. It's more for testing our accuracy, timeliness, and also compliance. We have a second level of reporting, which we call the advanced reporting, where we report a little bit based on benchmarking. And I know most of us are very good in this, where we benchmark with other organizations and we're able to say and compare with our peers and see where we are and calibrate our competitiveness. So benchmarking is good. It's kind of one level higher than the initial one. This is where we do most of our dashboards from. But then we have another third level called advanced analytics. This is where you find most organizations are struggling. In this level, we do a bit of modeling. We do root cause analysis. We involve statistical modeling just to answer the questions. If the sales go down, why? If the repayment is not coming, why? If we are losing employees and customers, why? You try to establish root cause, not by describing. Yes, you can start by a hypothesis, but you have to test it and get data that drives to answer you that question. So here we do a bit of proactive diagnostics and solutions that are more actionable. But finally, there's something we call value reporting, where you induce a bit of more scenarios in a more predictable way. You include scenarios. This is where the bit of intelligence comes in now, where it's almost automated, and you can be able to inference the future with a bit of more preciseness, as much as you may not be able to predict 100%. But this helps you in terms of what you call scenario-based management. I know when we train scenario-based management, the question is, how do you generate scenarios? Scenarios should come from data. Because you have the facts, you're able to do modeling, which you do in the advanced analytics. That modeling helps you generate scenarios that are all probable, and they can all be implemented, but with different differentiation based on their outcome. When you reach that level, then we can say you're doing a bit more value reporting. The capability required in this process, of course, is determined. When we did a bit of our research, it was 2019, 56% of organizations were still doing the operational reporting, 30% advanced reporting, only 4% had been able to go to the level of value and impact reporting. That means you are not able to correlate your actions with the impact that you produce at the end of the day. And that's the dilemma that we have as managers. As much as we may have data scientists, we may have data analysts, the BI team, if as managers we can't be able to guide them and be more data savvy ourselves, be data literate, then there's no way we can lead our organization to become evidence-based. And that's why I think for us, we need to make sure this process and this conversation is ongoing, even beyond this webinar from today. So some of the tools you require are BI tools. The traditional BI tools will help you do the normal BI. That's like Tableau, Power BI, Excel will help you do the basic up to advanced reporting. You probably would require a bit more advanced tools in data science tools like Python, R, and many others, maybe to get into a bit more deep, big data analytics. There are so many in the crowd right now. There are so many crowd solutions that you don't necessarily even have to download. You kind of have to use them as they are on the online. So you cannot be able to use them because they have been trained by super high performing machines that then are able to process data within a very short time and in very huge volumes at a go. So different data sets require different kind of capability in terms of even the tools that you use. But I can assure you this, even if you're using Excel, you can actually do advanced analytics and a little bit of predictive modeling, because we have done it, because there are people who are not necessarily going to data science space, and you don't have to master this end to end, but you need to have an appreciation so that you can also guide and mentor your other management team and also your reportees on what they need to do in the process. Where do people mostly struggle? They struggle when it comes to implementing the advanced reporting part. The move between the advanced reporting and the advanced analytics reporting is where you always find a gap, because that requires a new mindset. Now, the people who I know are looking at me and they're asking me, what's the difference between statisticians and data scientists? We have one distinct. I started my career as a mathematician, so I have both statistics, but now I went into data science. There's a whole paradigm shift to that. Now, statistics start with a hypothesis, then they look for data to qualify and answer the hypothesis. And they will be able to tell whether it was true or false. That's statistics. Data science, on the other side, start with the data, question the data, and unearth insights on what the data is saying. They may not start with a hypothesis. And that's the biggest gap I see many people making a mistake, where you'll hire, you apply statistics in data science. It doesn't work that way. So in the data analytics, mostly, you are already having the data. Of course, there's an element where you need to record more data. That's okay. But mostly is how do you question and kind of use the data you have to understand it, to study it, design patterns, ask questions from it, and then model, and then be able to produce more predictable insights. I know you might find a bit more of that in terms of the marketplace, and many are hiring, simply because you have statistics does not necessarily make you a data scientist, not necessarily, but you can integrate very well with a statistical background as well. So I think that's the part, and I think you need to combine logic and magic by using a data storytelling approach, because storytelling involves what you call emotional response. And when people are connected emotionally, they're able to make decisions. If you want the board to support you to make informed decisions from data, you also need to tell them a nice story. Otherwise, I have seen people and managers who tell me, Gabriel, my board, when I take a proposition or a business case that is data-driven, they don't appreciate. It is because maybe the way you are telling the story is not yet captivating enough to kind of give an emotional response for them to see the bigger picture and support you in your proposition. I think my time is up. I am tempted to almost maybe pause there and answer these questions.
How many more slides do you have?
Not many, maybe the next.
Just. I think the presentation is flowing well. Just wrap up on them.
Okay, I can promise the next 10 minutes I'm going to wrap up.
That is okay. So, that is okay.
Yeah, thank you.
That is okay.
Good, thank you for that. Now, I think in my slide somewhere in the beginning, I emphasize on one skill set. People are busy trying to get into tools, technologies for all this. And I can almost conclude to you, I tell you, robust BI tools without the right mindset will not solve for you the problem. I have gone, and sorry, I will use this example. I have worked with organizations as a consultant where they have the top of the market, robust BI platforms. Oracle BI, SAP BI, Tableau, very robust. And do you know what I see managers do? Do you know the way you take what do you call it? An album with the photos. You go and take an album when you are young, and you're going through the photos. I see managers going through dashboards, enjoying the graphs, the charts, but zero actionable insight from there. What is lacking there? The human factor. Now, if there's a skill that I would highly recommend, I know you're talking about data, but I can assure you as a data scientist, data without the mindset, which is the design thinking element, will still not work for you. Dashboards will not serve you. If you can't question, if you don't ask the right questions, those dashboards will be nothing to you. They will not add any value. So we need to have the human ability to be intuitive, to question, and that's why we need design thinking skill for management. And that should be something. I speak about it a lot. These are whole training by itself, design thinking, and that is one of the precursor for you to succeed in becoming evidence-based. Because remember, I gave you one use case, and I can tell you like 10 use cases because our day we spent on this space. We've done a lot of work, and I can tell you so many cases. Now, if we never question why people repay wrong between 12 and 2, we will not have moved even an inch. We'll be just a traditional consultant, just give you recommendation, tell you hire more debt recovery people to come and recover, and auctioneers to recover the loans. You'll improve your own book. That would have been the traditional process. But questioning and going beyond the realm of comfort to question something that is beyond your context. And that's why we need cross-functional elements. If you're a manager in finance, understand HR, understand sales, understand audit, understand risk, because all these are integrated together. So what do you require to succeed? If you ask me, design thinking skills and curiosity at the same time. So of course you need to empathize. We had to do that in that case I gave, where we empathize with the situation that, wow, your loan book is going down in terms of quality of it. People are not repaying loans. And therefore, of course, this is jeopardizing your cash flow. And you're going to be having liquidity issues later. That's an empathy issue. We define the problem because, of course, we had to look at the data and say, what the data telling us here? There is what people tell you as a problem. But when you go to the data, there's another problem, which maybe is more clear than what people will tell you. People tell you the symptoms, but they don't go to the deeper cause, the root cause of what the problem they are telling you. Then, of course, ideate. Now, I must admit to you, when it comes to data level, you have to do a lot of experiments. So get the ideas, experiment them. Some I can guarantee you will not work. So you have to accommodate a certain agile way of experimenting things. And that requires a bit of a commitment from your sponsors, your stakeholders, your board, your C-level executive, because they need to tolerate you, first of all, to prototype things, which sometimes some of them may not work. But out of trying 5 things, 1 actually will give you the real solution. Of course, from there, you test and then validate and then iterate again. You keep on going that, and that's what we call the agile way. So why we advocate for agile in terms of big data analytics is because it actually fulfills all the principles of how to get much from the data. You have to keep on learning, changing, modifying, testing, validating, adapting until you understand what the data tells you based on your context of your business. And then from there, of course, you can be able to get the impact from it. So for those who are looking to implement this in your process, what is some of the things that you can do? You need to build an executive consensus. Don't try to implement this if at all you don't have consensus with your team. Prioritize what is important. Not all data is important. Remember, there's something you call veracity. In the 5 V's, there's a veracity. Veracity is the accuracy of data. Not all data is important. In fact, not all data is true because some of them may be clapped. Now, you need to reduce the noise. There's something you call noise. And there are enough tools that you use, of course, in data science to try to filter the noise so that you're not listening to the noise, you are listening to the truth and the facts. So you may need to know that and how you can be able to reduce the noise so that you filter your data to what works. Then, of course, build consensus. Then after that, the source of your data and standards matters. So you need to standardize your data attributes. One of the challenges I have with many organizations is that when you go and do diagnostics of them on their data, some of them, their data is seated in documents. There's something we call document to data. You are in a company where you receive applications, maybe in a form, in PDF, in scanned documents. That information needs converted into data. So you have data seated as documents. You need to provide a way in which that transformation happens between documents, which maybe you have archived in your content management system, the CMS, where you scan documents and save them, because you're already holding a lot of information there that you need to analyze. But of course, you need to prevent any data collapse in terms of the long attributes that are captured. I know I'll give us an example. I think I love working with some agencies that are more appreciating of data. Some of the Japan corporations that I've ever happened to work with, there's something I've seen very consistent. They value data to an extent that they don't hire interns to do data entry. Managers will make this mistake. Now, for something you value, you'll also be very keen on who you engage. You find that when you want to capture data, who do you hire? Casuals. They don't even know the connection between the data and the decisions you're making. You come and day one, they have just graduated from campus. They don't even know how to put the right date. You tell them, come and convert these files into data. You don't train them. They end up giving you garbage in, garbage out. You end up struggling. You cannot make meaningful analysis from that data. Some of the companies that have appreciated data, what they do, before you are given a chance to actually enter data, you have to go through a certification, a data certification. And that shows the commitment they have on what they value most, because data is the gold for them. So if you enter the wrong data, they know you are actually defaulting and kind of defining our decision making. Are we able to do that as organizations? I think we are quite far away to reach that process. So you can see a very little thing, but I know most of us still struggle in this. Then, of course, we need to make sure we enforce ownership. Now, the data that sits within the organization is owned by the entire organization first, but of course, also owned by respective functions. We have left this that BI and the IT team owns data. No. If you're in sales, you own the sales data. If you're in HR, you own the HR data. If you're in marketing, you own the marketing data. But all that becomes interconnected enterprise data at the end of the day. So you need to build capacity for your team to do what you call data-led competencies, to be data literate, and that will make sure at least all of you are speaking from the same boat. Then finally, you need to invest and align. I can't say that it is easy. You need to still do a bit of investment. Companies now, they are busy training all their employees to be data survey. And it's true. I do a lot of these training companies where you actually almost pre-qualify all employees. You say the bare minimum competency you need as an employee is data-led professional. And you'll be taken through some of the bare minimum concepts of data, as much as you may have your domain experience. So you need to align also the data to strategy, because again, not every data is relevant to you. You may be listening to a lot of data that is not sensible to your organization. Choose that which works for you. Align it to the market. Don't only rely with your internal data from your ERPs. There's a much data out there in what you call public data portals. There's so much data out there in the market. For those who are using Microsoft, there's Azure, there's Amazon, there's a lot of data pipelines out there, which can go there and start analyzing some trends globally, which then you kind of customize and domesticate internally. Then finally, review, modify, and adopt. That means it's a continuous process along the way. When you're doing business case for data-driven business case, now I must admit to you, the moment you become data-led, your risk also become data risks. All your risk now almost corrupts into one. They become data risks. The risk you have in the data affect the entire value chain of your decision making. Then dig into calculated return on investment. You can have that in another conversation. Secure resources you require for the implementation. Above all, keep learning, keep changing, keep adapting, keep improving. Finally, I started with a mindset. I will end with a mindset. Now, until you believe that what we have said here is workable, it will not work for you. There are people who say, I won't do it, I can't do it, I want to do it, how do I do it, I'll try. All that is a journey of perception ladder until your breakthrough of transformation reaches the stage where you say, I want to do it. And I hope I win that commitment from you. I want to implement this in my organization. I want to do it. That's where breakthrough starts. Do you know what? That's a mindset. That's why the element and the pivot for pivoting into evidence decision making, it's a mindset issue, more of a mindset than more as it is in terms of technologies and the tools that we can talk about. So we have to improve our attitude as long as we continue into this conversation. You either step forward and continue in safety. That's also an option for you. And that's a Masro comment. And I think I'll end there. Unless these are questions, maybe Brian will help me read them. Thank you so much for listening to me. These are beginner series. I'll be happy to facilitate more other sessions that are a bit more targeted, a bit more dissecting it out of the components. I know I have rushed and therefore there's a lot of information overload, but I hope it has left you the sense of paradigm shift in terms of your thinking on how you can apply data as a manager. Thank you so much. And I look forward to engage further in subsequent conversations. Over to you, Brian.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nyamu, for that presentation. Very insightful, as you said, and also stating that this is the beginners level. would be very delighted to go into the next stage, the 2.0. I don't know if it's the 2.0, it's the 4.0, but we'll be very delighted going into the next presentation. We really, really appreciate this discussion this afternoon. Going direct into the question and answer session, I think only 2 questions have come in. I think those ones, I will fill them to you at one go. How do you handle a case where the data is not correct? And would this lead to the wrong analysis? That is the first question. And the next question, maybe if you can answer them at one go, what are the best strategy? What are the best strategies to have concise and correct data or information for decision making? I don't know if you're able to get them both.
Yes, I'll do that, definitely. Thank you so much for those wonderful questions. I think it's a good, it shows that, of course, we are connecting. Yes, I think I gave a disclaimer in the beginning, and I said, of course, that garbage in, garbage out, general. So you don't have to, and I think in my last closing conversation, I talked about that you don't have to analyze and use all the data. You need to filter that, which we call that noise. So that data can be noisy. There's data that is noisy, which is not necessarily speaking to the context of the organization. So what I would say for me is take a back step first. You know, the way you plan all resources. We are very busy planning for financial resources. And I know we usually go for retreats and you do financial management strategy. Human resource strategy, you require a data management strategy. Now, this is an additional docket that has come to your space as management. So you have then to sit down, understand your business, then develop a data strategy, which is like the way you do your financial strategy, you do your marketing strategy. Now you're bringing you another dimension, data strategy. That's the only way you're able to know what you require, the kind of data, in what form, and where to get it, and how to analyze it. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you'll be gabbling, like, a gabble in the market, and you don't know exactly what you're trying to achieve. So I would say for you to begin somewhere and to avoid analyzing data that probably you don't use, and maybe the data is wrong, then definitely you need to have a data strategy. Now, what do you achieve in the data strategy? First of the component, remember the 5 stages from data, information, intelligence, insight. At the data level, what did I say? In the data, we say your headache there is data integrity. So when you tell me data is incorrect, we are still in stage 1, data integrity. That is at the data stage. You won't deal with integrity when you're at the intelligence level. If you started well, we usually say things don't go long, things start long. It is at the beginning where things go long. So if you address the data integrity from the word go, so you make sure you're capturing the right data, the right format. If it's a P9, okay, what do you call it? A PIN number, it should have 11 characters. Can you make sure the system enforces that you cannot put 10 characters? It's so basic, let me tell you. But that's why we get it wrong, because we end up having data coming into a system. Then what we do? Whenever I come to your organization and I find a department called reconciliation, especially in finance, it's already an indicator. You have a long way to go in data-driven decision. Why? Reconciliation is matching entries from a payable, something that was paid, or a receivable from a receipt. You're matching it, what was this person paying for? Meaning you never corrected that data initially. Now, when I see that when I'm doing audit for data, it tells me correctly, you are not yet ready for that process. You are still in the data phase. That one slide I mentioned is likely to answer almost all those questions that have been asked right now. The data to impact. You're actually able to see where you are. Now, I think that's one I've tried to double the two in a way. Now, in terms of somebody who is asking when there's too much data not dangerous, I can say, what are you looking for? You're looking for truth. You are looking for facts. I don't know how much of truth is dangerous. I think the danger there is coming from probably lack of context. And this is why I'll give you. You need to be careful of the insights that you're getting from data, whether they are speaking to your situation or to somebody else's situation. I'll give an example. If you're relying on the crowd data, that is the data in the internet and the data in the social media, it will give you the generalized human behavior globally. Question is, are you able to slice down to the behavior of your market segment. Meaning, if you're in Kenya, if you're in Africa, can I get a slice down of the behavior of Kenya? If you're not able to slice down, be careful, because the data might be giving you insights of what is happening globally, but if you're not able to drill it down to your segments or your space of dominion, don't use it religiously, because you might be trying to force something that is speaking about Saudi Arabia when you're in Kenya. Maybe the market insight is a behavior of how people are spending their money in Dubai, not in Kenya. That's the only risk in terms of match data. You need to be able to segment and see the behavior in a sliceable version of the market you exercise your business from. That's what I can caution. Somebody is asking about the artificial intelligence coming into play in research. I think, I hope I got that question right. How will artificial intelligence? Let me tell you this. I think what will happen is this. The way in which the world is going, we have a lot of information happening. It will reach a place where I don't need to do a survey. One of the impact in research is that we spend too much time collecting data. Do you know that data you are collecting is available somewhere where I don't necessarily have to commission a research to do it? Your work should be questioning, testing your hypotheses and your questions using that data, and modeling part of it, that modeling side. So one of the things that I've seen especially happen is that in AI is almost kind of helping us not spend too much work in terms of collecting data, because much of that data somewhere is actually almost available. Of course, we are not saying that we cannot advance it. Yes, we can still have our own, primary data collection, but we are almost reducing the primary data collection to more of the secondary, where we're able almost to rely with a lot of data already collected. People are already engaging us through our platforms. They are commenting on your Facebook page. They are commenting. So why do I have to go and interview people? That aspect of interviewing people, you may find we already have enough information. Of course, we can have some few, but kind of limiting. So we are reducing the primary research data. I know we do case studies and all, that's fine, and it's going to continue a little bit. But now you are able to do more faster case studies, because there's too much information that actually is available. You only need to know how to use it to make more of your deductive reasoning and your conclusion. So I think that's how I can represent kind of those feedback. And thank you so much for engaging me in such.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nyamu, for those responses. I think that the topic has been well received, and that's why we're seeing so many questions are coming in, and also the appreciation from the members. At this point, I will invite Dr. Muridhi Ndegwa to give us the closing remarks. Karibu Idi.
Thank you very much, Brian, and thank you very much, Gabriel. It was such an interesting discussion that I think the questions just kept on flowing, and we have gone way beyond time. But I guess it's because of the nature of the discussion, technical, and also the fact that it was also very interesting. So allow me on behalf of the Institute to say thank you very much to all those who logged in. At peak, we saw we had more than 65 persons, and this is really a very encouraging number. We appreciate your time. We also appreciate those who came in for the first time today, those who logged in for the first time today, those who logged in early. As usual, we always start at 3 o'clock on the dot. And even those who raised questions, to all of you, I want to say thank you very much. And to Brian and his team, thank you very much. I know there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes. So thank you very much to you and your team for enabling these webinars to come after every 2 weeks. And to the speaker of the day, I've seen quite a number of the comments. Some are saying very insightful presentation. Others are saying very valuable lessons that have been learned. And we want to say this, Bwana Gabriel Nyamu, thank you so much for your passion, your dedication, the discourse that you've given us, because you could see it was not just coming from knowledge, but coming from your heart, that this is something that you're really passionate about. So thank you so much. Like you said, this is Data Analytics 1.0. We are likely to look at another lesson, another day, and we'll certainly come back to you. And please be obliged to come and give us another discourse when we knock on your doors. To every one of us who was here today, and certainly to the speaker of the day who's done a good job, do we give him a thumbs up? I believe so. Thank you so much, Mr. Nyamu. So every one of you and every one of us, thank you so much for the webinar today. You have a blessed night, and we look forward to see you another day. Thank you, and God bless you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you too. Be blessed. Thank you for having me.